So your ex-wife is looking at you like, why the did I leave that guy? That guy's a champ. I fucked up. That's the guy I should have been with. That's
It's funny because like trauma always wakes you up. Because I think there was a point I got in a fight with my dad. I got kicked out of the house, and I had to figure it out. I had to like figure it out. And then like the second time was when my dad got sick, and then like I was in the hospital with him, and I'm like, shit, no one is gonna save me. Like hospital bills were coming in, and I was like, no one's coming to save me. I have to figure it out. And I feel like when you have a moment like that, it's like, okay, I have to fucking figure this out. No one's coming to save me. No one's coming to save this family. I have to figure it out. And I feel when you have that moment, yeah, everything is, you value everything so much more, and you just realize how unimportant a lot of things are. Like how people's perception of you, what people think of you, you just start to be like, okay, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I made some poor financial investments earlier this decade. And when I watched the market crash and my portfolio crash and realizing my father, who was a financial guru, he wasn't there to save me. And I had to fix all these problems myself. That was another realization for me. Like the level of pressure that I was under. Just imagine guys losing 50% of your net worth in a day. Like it was like that kind of feeling, right? And then, by the way, that sucks when you're worth 50 grand. If you're worth several million and you lose 50, I'm not saying how much I was worth, but if you lose several million in a day, you're going to be like, this is like, I didn't want to end my own life, but I totally understood why some guys back in New York were doing it. Like I understood the impulse was just so incredibly strong, and you would do anything to get rid of that impulse and that panic. So that's why that happened. But then what I do is just sit down, I have gratitude, talk to my family, and they were like, we love you. It doesn't matter. Like it's fine. Whatever happened. And, I start a scalable business that works out, make all the money back. And I look back on it and I'm grateful for the whole situation to happen. But it's one of these things where now I look back because I had gratitude in the situation, and now I know I can get through anything. Growing up, going to Woodrow Wilson High School in East Dallas, well, in crime that was there, going through U.S. military survival school, and then surviving like these several economic calamities, including the one in '08 and the one in 2010 and the one in 2020 and the one in when the invasion of Ukraine, I guess 2021, all of those economic calamities that had happened, when you survive through those, you just realize you can get through anything. You know what I'm saying? Like it's almost like, and the other thing you're going to find is that like as you get older, memento mori, you remember you're mortal, and then the other one is this too shall pass, right? These sayings that people
this
have.
too shall pass. I love that one.
This too shall pass. It's just really important. And then the other one I love is Good by Jocko Willink. It's like, oh, you just won $10 million. Good. Hey man, just want to let you know, like half your staff just quit last night. Good. Like no matter what it is, the answer is good. It's like either the thing that happened is good or the challenge that's on the way is also good. It's such a healthy way of like living your life. To me, that's better than therapy. A friend of mine was asking me, am I happy? Because he was looking at all the things I was doing. And he asked a legitimate question. He's like, hey, man, are you happy? And I was like, man, I've never been happier. I just can't imagine, like, I get to accomplish goals with other men that I respect. That's the apex of human existence. That and having a family, I think, is the apex of human existence. So like, why not build a life where you can do that all the time? I mean, back to your original point, it's like, I don't have an issue with therapy. If you could find a performance coach for me who was a therapist, I would go to him in 2 seconds, but he has to understand that bills must get paid no matter how I feel about it. As long as he understands that, then I'm down for whatever.
Okay, in terms of with performance coaching with your clients, how much has finances affected the emotional well-being of like the clients you've had?
To some extent, a lot. And that's one of the things we focus on. So just think of like health, wealth, and relationships as like different sliders, different attributes, whichever the one that they're having the worst problem with. Like I have one client, he's doing well. He's got a CDL, pretty good license. He's a pretty good job driving trucks. So his wealth is good. His relationships aren't, but he's overweight. So health becomes one. If all three are even, health comes first. If all three are even, health comes first. Okay.
Yeah.
But then I have what the majority of my clients are in this situation where they're in pretty decent shape. Maybe they've gone through a breakup or they've just been working, really hard for a decade, and now they have some money saved up. So wealth is good and health is good. So we spend our time working on relationships. We spend our time working on networking and becoming the most attractive versions of ourselves so that we can attract the opposite sex. That becomes the priority then for those men because their attribute on relationships is lower than health and wealth. But health has to come first. And it was like, I'd always known that, but it was actually Justin Waller who kind of just like made me clearly see that was the case. Like health is just because one of the things people don't understand. And again, I've seen therapists that don't grasp this. You're talking to someone across from you on a couch who's morbidly overweight, and they're sitting there talking to you about depression. And the only thing you need to tell them is to lose weight. Like when people don't grasp that, there's a great book by Dr. Daniel Perlmutter called Grain Brain, and it goes over plaque that's developed in the brain from eating too much gluten. People, when you get fat, I don't know if you've seen this before, Stephen, seen someone put on 100 pounds of fat, and they turn crazy. There is no way to put on 50 pounds of fat and not have it affect your neurology. It absolutely does. If you have a therapist and the therapist is looking at somebody who's over 14% body fat, let's say over 16% body fat, and that isn't the first thing your therapist is saying, because that's the difference between a therapist and a performance coach. The first thing I'm going to tell you is you've got to get the weight down. You've got to lower the body fat percentage, because it's not just your body, it's your brain that functions different when you do that. And so that's why, again, if you find a coach for me who's going to tell me that, then I'm all about it. Then that's totally fine. But they have to understand I have to perform.
What is the level of accessibility for the average person for a performance coach?
That's a good question. I know for me, ours is a high ticket offer. Like, you have to pay for 6 months, to do the thing with me. That's a good question. I don't know what it is in general. But the thing is, because I'm a performance coach, but I also, like, a licensed therapist is going to say, what are your feelings? They're going to repeat your feelings back to you. And then they're going to use their medical information, like the technology that they've learned, the strategy they've learned to help fix you. In my situation, I'm actually going to give you strategies for life to help build your business, to get in better shape, and to be able to network with people and meet more attractive women, to become a better leader and a better speaker. And in doing so, increase your performance. And from that, I am actually going to give you suggestions. Whereas a lot of times with therapists, they're not going to judge your life. They're going to get you away from, I am going to judge you to a certain extent and try to get you. Yeah. So that's why, it's hard for me. If we're talking about like a licensed performance coach, I don't know what the answer to that is. I know what I do. What I do is I found an evidence-based way of getting results for men. And then I teach it, and I have a pretty structured course that's got 11 different pillars in it where I teach all the things that I've learned over the last 25 years.
And has it led to a level of success in most of the people? Because that's a very long-term investment. So I feel like 6 months, someone who joins that is someone that's very much dedicated and like.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it. If you get a graduate degree, it's going to be 2 or 3 years. If you go to a therapist, most people are going to do that for several years. It's not that long of one, but I mean, the thing is, how much is it worth to you? If you really want to change, if your wife left you because you were fat and said you had no ambition, you can go to a therapist, and a therapist can help you deal with the depression and sadness. And then you can come to me, and we're going to get you in shape. And then we're going to do something with your career where you're motivated to solve other people's problems, maybe scale your career, find ways to replace different functions in your business so that you can spend more time doing what you love, coming with all these amazing strategies. So your ex-wife is looking at you like, why the did I leave that guy? That guy's a champ. I up. That's the guy I should have been with. That's what I do as a performance coach, as opposed to a therapist.
Isn't it funny how a lot of men always have this thing of trying to win their ex back or proving their ex wrong?
Yeah, for sure. By the way, let's talk about this, Stephen. Men are addicted. This is another thing why therapy for men and women has to be different. Men are addicted to sexual validation, and women are addicted to attention. Addicted. Women get their validation through attention. Men get their validation through sex. Just a massive generalization. To be more specific, men get their validation through compliance leading to sex, and women get their validation from attention leading to resources. So that in general, I'm just massive generalization here, but that's generally the way it is. But here's the difference, right? Me as a man, because I want to be attracted to the opposite sex, okay? I get a haircut, I go to the gym, I dress clothes that fit me. My place is spick and span, incredibly clean. I live right next to the strip. Like, I have a lot of nice things and become a better speaker and just better person, more well-rounded human being, because I was trying to impress the opposite sex for the last 40 years, okay?
Yeah.
And so I think it made me a better person. Now, I don't know that a woman's addiction to attention does the same thing. I just don't see it does. What I see there is, fake photos, posting thirst traps. It feels like their necessity for validation does not make them better people. Whereas my necessity for validation makes me want to run into a burning building to save people, because that's what my job is as a masculine man. That's just my opinion. Like, I'm not saying, obviously, women are awesome, men are awesome. I'm not saying women are worse. I'm just saying my validation for sexual selection actually makes me a better person. In general, not always. Obviously, some men lied in order to women, so that would be an example where it would make you a worse person. But in general, when I see women, like, their necessity for attention does not make them better people. Whenever I post something on my Instagram, and there's some guys out there that like genuinely disagree with me, and I totally understand why they disagree. But there's some guys, and I'd say most of the guys who disagree with me on there are doing so because they're trying to impress women. They're trying to like be this white knight, save up dude who, like, I'm gonna stick it to Michael Sartain and show these women that I'm better than him by standing up for their honor. And you just want to grab these dudes and be like, dude, they're not gonna fuck you. No matter how many nice comments you put on my wall, they're not going to fuck you. These women aren't gonna fuck you. You want to tell them that, but they don't want to listen. So yeah, I think that the only reason men can get away with that, they're like snitches and they're sniveling and they're passive aggressive and talk about other dudes behind their back, it's because we don't live in an ancestral society. If we lived in small tribes and you shit about me behind my back, I'm going to beat the out of you. That's the way it would work. But we don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I don't do that.
We don't do that. We don't do that anymore.
They do that here. They do that in Jamaica, not in the States.
Yeah, the thing is, like, do you remember the video of Mike Tyson turning around and punching that guy on the airplane? That was an example of a human. I would bet you any amount of money that the guy who Mike Tyson was punching, he leaves comments on YouTube and Reddit and TikTok talking about people. I would bet you any amount of money he does. Nah. And when he was talking to Mike Tyson, in his mind, he's still protected. He's like, I talk to people all the time and no one does anything to me, right? And then he did it but he just did it to the wrong motherfucker. You know, if I'm a jury and I'm looking at this after the fact, I'm like looking at the dude, and I don't care how bad Mike Tyson beat this guy up. I'm like, you said that to Mike Tyson. You kind of deserve it. You know what I'm saying? Like, at some point, like, logic and reason have to step in. Is violence correct in that instance? No, but you did talk Mike Tyson.
I mean,
so you kind of
like the person more willing to get into a fight is least likely to get into the fight. Yeah, we don't have that. We don't have stuff like that. There've been a lot of bloggers. Yeah, you have bloggers that do gossip blogs. Yeah. Out here, a lot of them have been killed. Like,
that's terrible. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, it's not okay. So it's not. But my point is, like, there's certain people you can't talk. Like, especially I live in
the cartel in northern Mexico would be a bad, like, being in Tijuana and writing a blog about the cartel would be a bad move. No, I agree with you. That's definitely the case.
So, like, out here, there's kind of you don't have that, like, space of talk and not I live on an island, so I see it too many times. I'm like, there's people that think they're in the States because you have that freedom in America to talk. Seen too many people get beat up out here because of that.
Yeah, that's what happened to that guy. So just so we're clear, men are also, because of a lack of accountability, generally from the anonymity that they've been giving due to social media. That's why men have become unaccountable as well. Pornography and other things like that. But for women, their lack of accountability generally come, like, again, my girlfriend's very smart. She says things that are correct, but men agree with her when she says these things, but they're not agreeing with her because she's correct. They're agreeing with her because she was a bartender and she's the hot bartender, and they're going to agree with her. That's why. Man. And that's essentially what happens. Even though she is correct, that's not why they're agreeing.
Well, I've had situations with female friends where they come to me for advice and I tell them the truth and they actually absolutely hate me for the advice. And our friend was she's a model.
Usually, Stephen, usually they don't hate me for the advice. Usually they appreciate the advice. They tell me I'm wrong. They get a little bit defensive, and then they don't take the advice. And then when they're wrong and I turn out to be right, they tend to, like, stop talking to me. I've seen that happen. I don't know if you've ever had, like, where you tell a girl exactly what's going to happen and it happens, and then, like, she can't even face you afterwards. I've had that happen several times. Hey, to let you know, honey, your boyfriend is going to cheat on you again, and they just don't hear it. You know?
Yeah, I had a friend. She didn't talk to me for months. But then she came back and just like, yeah, you were right.
It sucks. Yeah, like, going your whole life not being accountable, and then somebody holds you accountable. What must that feel like? And especially, Stephen, if you're a guy who's actually her friend and you're not trying to sleep with her and she's not your boss, that means when you hold her accountable, she can't punish you back. Like, you're not sleeping with her. She can't like withhold sex or attention from you. It doesn't matter. You guys are just friends. And so when someone who's like that, who's like completely unaccountable to her, sits there and gives her accountable lessons, then it's very difficult.